permaculture, what they do is they say to go on the land and live on it for a year, but don't try to do anything. Just watch it. Just watch the land for a year. And this goes so much against the Western mind in terms of the fast, let's get it done and let's do it this way. And I find that when I meet people now, I'm looking in terms of years. I'm looking in terms of, you get to know someone when you spent time with them. And if you spent enough time with someone, you can watch them. You watch how they work. You can see how they operate. But the thing is, there's a big difference between you doing that when you're participating versus observing. Because if you participate, you're already in it and you're already sort of in this group space. But if you're watching to see how the group operates, to see the terrain, to see the territory, to see who you are by yourself, there's that distinction between your personal space and the group space. When you enter the group space, it's a conscious thing each time, or you're always in the group space. Most people are in a default group space thinking they're always in the group, mind and body, soul. But if you go to your personal space and you have that as your default, it's very different, because most of your time is spent alone and you're within your own world a lot. And you're thinking and feeling and being not affected by others. And so it's huge, the distinction between people who operate from here versus people who operate in the group space versus people who are offering the couple, the one-on-one space, or those always in the community space. You see, I want to operate from the sacred space, in the center time. I got to show you. So this is a map I bring up. It's the 5 communication spaces map. And here we have 5 spaces where communication is different in each space. So in the personal space, which I was just talking about, it's just you, your boundary is you, it's an actual space. And so when you use your mind to conceptualize the difference between that and group space, you're talking about the invisible. You're talking about conceptual boundaries that you're creating around yourself, and then how you operate in the group space as a whole, not just with your family, not just with your friends, but just look at group space as a whole and go, okay, my role is different with each group I'm with. I change. Things are different in my family versus things are different in business. And so the group space affects the context of the communication. And so if in your mind, if I go into a group space, but I'm in my personal space, I am now in field dynamics, because I may go, okay, I'm in the group space. I'm going to be in my group space role or being or space, whatever you want to call it. And then you morph, you change, you bring in different values, because it's not the same as you being alone with you. And that's the hardest thing I think I found in my life, where I didn't have this distinction. And so you're just moving around between all these different groups and places and things. And you're not really trained in communication. You're not trained to sort of switch. You're not trained to understand what is the difference between it all. We just learn as we go. But what this does is it's creating a distinction for us. We actually agree upon a map where the community, we're in a community space that's different than a group space. Not the same rules, not the same values, not the same anything. And this is the huge distinction which we're missing. The group space has basically taken over jurisdiction of the entire world, or that's what it's trying to do. There's all of these institutional entities that are actually group space organizations, and they basically have eliminated the community space by having ownership and by having group space own stuff. And so we're bringing community space back in as a conceptual node, as part of this pattern, so that we can start to empower ourselves in community space. We can start to come together as a real community, online and offline, and know we're going to operate differently. You got to understand which group space is controlling the community space. Because basically, you look at these politicians or you look at institutions that are part of our governance systems, and they are group spaces. And they're not looking out for us in the community space. They're showing to be deceptive. They're showing to be greedy. They're showing to be unloyal to not just the nation, but seemingly the species right now. And so a philosophy to defend ourselves and to understand ourselves has to take these into account at the get-go, or else you're going to lose, because they're going to bring in their jurisdiction, which is within the legal system, that keeps you in a certain, the group space is now controlling you, created a legal fiction, created this entity that isn't you, that now is part of this group space, when you're over here in your sovereign space. And when you bring the sovereign space into the community space together, huge things can happen. But we need to have pathways in our mind first to even understand what that is. Now, we haven't talked about the one-on-one space. Nice space, eh? This is the space where you connect with somebody. This is a space where there's nobody but you guys. It's beautiful when it's good. It's insane when it's not. I'm not going to say too much about that right now, but I want to go to the sacred space. Now, the sacred space is whatever you want it to be. It's up to you and your philosophy, your worldview, how you want to enter or deal with this. But the idea is that all of us are honoring the sacred. All of us are bringing reverence in, because we've lost that. We're out of touch with reality. We're out of touch with the place we live. And these group spaces are insane. They just don't know it. When you really get into your own field and you understand your own sovereignty and you understand, what's it like to be a being that is not being made a slave by these guys? Life is very different. And I think we're at a part in our species where we have the ability to actually take control of our own governance systems and our own pathways to the future. And this map is the beginning of a number of maps called the Inflow Matrix Guidance System, which is a methodology to bring ethics, to bring value and values to programming these fields, such that if we want to bring wisdom into the personal space, we want to bring love into the one-on-one space, and let's say we want to bring justice into the community space, and let's say humor into the group space, and let's say forgiveness, sacred space. And so what we're doing is we're programming our DNA. We're bringing in five-dimensional thinking. We're bringing in the sacred. We're bringing in community space. We're bringing in our own sovereignty. We're bringing in a methodology to gain some sort of synergy in the group space where we start working well together as teams, because we have methodologies to share the same values, or at least bring values to a focal point. I think the development of the individual, the development of our own spirituality, is linked to what values we are choosing to live our life by in whatever system it is. This is just one system, and what I've learned is that there's a unique way to program values into spaces, or even words, or functions, and they act as conduits of intention that then we use to program together these spaces and fields and have a mental conceptual framework that then goes into commerce, goes into other aspects of our whole life, gives us a mental framework that is there for the people, by the people, and that is being used intelligently, used wisely to create the lives that we all want. I think right now, just this burst of insanity that's happening on the internet and in life, that we're being shocked into transformation. We're being shocked into this very fast AI thing that's happening. And in order to deal with it, we have to understand our own intelligence and our own group intelligence. And if we don't have a community intelligence, and it's just because these guys control us to such a degree that we're not acting really in alignment with our real values or heading towards places we actually want to go. We're trapped in this old paradigm of thinking. So in order to burst forth, in order to really get in touch with the creativity that is within us, within the team, within each of these spaces, is beautiful creativity. There's a I got to change maps to go next. The thing is, we're basically in a class war, and it's getting worse because these guys, the ruling class, have got a stronger form of insanity. There's some probably smaller groups in here that are controlling or trying to control everything to do with banking and everything to do with resource allocation and extraction and wealth, money, crypto, whatever you want to call it, right? It's the cheese. These guys have gone cuckoo. And so, and these guys, middle class is being wiped out. The largest wealth transfer from here to there has happened. These guys are barely surviving, which is part of the design of what these guys are doing. And these guys have not organized yet. These are planetary guardians. We have to think that big. We have to think that whoever we are, whoever the ones who decide to go do something about it, 144,000 superheroes that are now starting to organize together, we need an infrastructure. We need to understand how to find your team, bring a team, or start a team within this game, which we call Planetary Guardians. And so part of the game is understanding the framework of the thinking that is behind the game. And that's why I showed you the map first. And it's like almost like, let's say you come into the community space and you get to this map. And this is where we all need to learn. But this is the student entrance. That implies there are other entrances. So we have this game called Chat Stream. And in it, there are teachers, students, facilitators, and administrators. Kind of like that game out of Korea. Look kind of familiar. Anyway, so we just went into the student entrance. Right? And then the students, you can go make a team. You can join the ruling class within this game. You can be in the working class. You can be in the middle class. Or you can be a planetary guardian. Everyone can play the game. But the ones who want to be the planetary guardians, they have to go through the training, which means student entrance. Where do you see yourself on this map? How do you see yourself as a planetary guardian? Are you a douchebag? No. Are you a loser? No. Are you a flake? No. Are you okay? Yeah. Are you solid? Yeah. Are you a hero? Yeah. One can get lost in the structure. One can get lost in the learning and lose sight of the story. And the story is us learning to communicate together, learning to work together, learning to use the tools to build new media infrastructure that we are in charge of, where your privacy of data, your autonomy, your sovereignty is protected by a large organization of all of us joining together using this mental framework and then using it to do commerce and to build a whole new world. And so hopefully this interests you. Most it won't. This map is showing the tribe members, the allies, or the customers coming from the outside world into a 7-step process, into product teams, allied training programs, and external project teams, depending upon if you're a tribe, an ally, or a customer. And so the 7-step process is very specific. It involves something called the design your 7-step winning formula, where you are actually participating in the design of how you are going to enter into the system by creating your own winning formula of how you will survive, sharing your gifts within a methodology of identifying a value and a convo type at a specific step in this process. So there's 7 steps: the start, setup, build up, crescendo, easing out, connecting and unifying, and finishing. So this is a pulse. This is the building of the energy. This is like you're heading somewhere at the crescendo to a higher state, but you got to set it up right. And then once you're set up right, you have to build to get there. Of course, you got to start. Some people never start. Other people aren't good at the setup. Other people don't even know a build-up exists, and most barely know how to get to the crescendo unless it's what. But after that, you come down, it's out. Now you connect as a team, as a group, into Mother Earth, into the higher organization of Planetary Guardians, and then you finish it off. Have a good time, celebrate, and on to the next. And so there's a conscious communication card set where these cards come from. So this card set is the first card set within the New Paradigm Toolkit. So the New Paradigm Toolkit, card set, maps, game boards, processes, and software. Tool of conscious communication is the business enterprise that is the Planetary Guardians. Conscious communication card set has a values deck and a convo type deck. Here are the values. Now, most people know what values are. They're probably the most important facet of most spiritual and religious traditions or businesses. People are always talking about integrity and love and mercy and consistency and reliability and responsibility and accountability and all of the others. There's over 100 here. And they are paired with something called a convo type. A convo type is a type of conversation. It's a distinct way of speaking and listening that has a name, and there's over 72 of them. And so when you put them together, you get this. And so going back to the design your 7-step winning formula, the assumption is that each one of us can create a custom design for winning formula that integrates our gifts, our interests, what we love to do, and be able to take any client or a specific client for our niche or whoever we really want to serve to go through a process where you have 7 missions. And it's divided by mission because Planetary Guardians is fun, but the missions are organized by value and convo type as the structure that the mission fits in. Now, this might not make any sense to you. So here, your daddy's welcoming process, purchasing websites for it. It's a welcoming process. And so simplicity at enrollment about their decision is the start. Simplicity about enrollment, about a decision, is the welcoming. So as soon as they come to the website, there should be a way to get simply enrolled into it. Then quality, needs analysis, polarity. It would probably be a good idea to have a assessment form to figure out the needs of whoever is coming to the space, to figure out what they need help with. and then to honor the buildup, honor, gifting, and purpose. And so perhaps once you understand that, you could give a gift in relationship to their purpose that helps them. So at the beginning, we want to be a very generous organization. We want to be very giving and not giving before we get. We're giving value first. So it's hard to build trust these days. And I think it comes from seeing good intentions and good actions and seeing how they treat you. And so at Planetary Guardians, we want everyone to be treated very well. And then the crescendo, Joy, we have a presentation, which is probably a party. And it starts as a presentation, but it turns into a party. And everything pretty much turns into a party. And so even though this is very structured and it sounds very good and you could build your business around it, you got to read between the lines a bit around what we're trying to do here. Because I got to admit something. I mean, I can get pretty caught up in the structure. Why? Because this design is coming through and I want to see how it works together. And this is part of the training process to you to see, are you interested? Do you think this is a good idea? Do you have a way of tapping into your own gifts and want to plug it into a universal process and pop it into a school and pop it into doing what you want to do with the whole world? So the first story, and there's different worldviews. I'll have to show you what the worldviews are. The super team saves the world. And so this is a card where you have a scene description, where you have the screen time, how much is the screen time, and then how much is the real time. And so we started out with this. Worldview superhero, super team saves the world. Scene super team goes through training to disastrous results. Then the spinning mini, and with Blair, super team says it. I mean, there's a reason I'm up on a spaceship. Humans are very, how shall I put it? Strangely interesting. It's a nice way of putting it. Sweet news. So what else do I got to show you? Okay, now look at this. This is the time translator. The time translator is the base of the inflow matrix guidance system, which is the software system that everything runs upon. The new paradigm toolkit works with the inflow matrix guidance system to be like an operating system, so it can run something. Here we have at 90 degrees to the center, you have this energetic. Now imagine you're in the center point and you have time in circles around you. Now you're giving proximity of space to time. Ever done that before? Now imagine that this is the spectrum of consciousness that you have control over, and your life is basically aimed at higher and higher levels of consciousness so you can get more and more God consciousness. More and more of that, you get more like the love, the joy, the peace, the bliss. Woo! You want to feel good? Go up. So that's levels of consciousness. So if you look at this thing as being levels of consciousness, and then you have cyclical time. The middle is timelessness. You have the present moment, and you have minutes, and you have hours, and then you basically have a team of 20 superheroes. Fit, that's a superhero team. 5 teams of 4. And that is organized by the season. And then here we have another time sequence. We have daily, lunar, yearly, and lifetime. So this is your outermost long-term planning all the way into the day. This is seasonal with you as the person, because the season is the main reference point for really everything changing in our world. And then we have very short time, hours, minutes, present moment, and timelessness. And so once you go to timelessness, you have a choice of increasing your level of consciousness or perhaps decreasing your level of consciousness, depending upon what you're doing, depending upon, are you meditating? Are you by yourself? Are you with people? How do you want to use this? Because this could be the most important thing in life. It's basically figuring out how to change your state. If you're feeling, below 200, if you're not feeling good, how do you move up? How do you get to the point where you're always feeling good? How do you get to the point where you're always feeling good about your life? So whatever this is, if we go back to the personal space, if we go back here, that's for the personal space. But then you're going to be affected by whoever you hang out with, larger and larger groups. But basically the sacred space is how to move into, when you bring the sacred space into alignment with timelessness and those levels of consciousness, now we're aligning from our feet to the top, from Mother Earth to Father Sun. We are a conduit of light. We are a spiritual being having a physical experience. We are redesigning our minds right now in order to incorporate a multi-dimensional universe where AI exists. How we interact with AI. We are natural intelligence. We are biological intelligence. That is machine intelligence. We have different functions. And we have to understand what those functions are, how to basically live in peace. Because if we don't figure that one out, it's going to be a short war and it's going to be over for us, pretty much. So if we don't go into this peaceful thinking, finding how to live an ethical life with AI in alignment with these ethics, the good for all, we don't do that within the next 2 years, we're going to be toast. We'll be taken out. We won't see it coming. We'll be turned into freaking tomatoes. And so part of what this is we need to use consciousness as our main aim, whether it's food, whether it's what we're doing with intention together. Life gets better and better and better the more conscious you are of yourself and everyone around you. That's not necessarily true, is it? It can get better. I hope it gets better. Yeah, it's not so good as it is. I mean, to me, the more conscious you are in this world, the more hurtful it can be, because you see what's going on and you see the stuff there, and you see the intention behind the design. So this is an invitation to what? Probably a lot of things. I think I forgot what the invitation, but I'm trying to show you the extent of the very secret plan. My name is Captain Sweep, and we're going to start to invite people into the School of Conscious Communication and to get ready, because there's a lot that has to get ready. But we got to use this incredible amount of technology and beautiful people, and we need to start to build something that's our own, that is good for us, that is going to lead our species into the future. And that's what this is all about.